Defying the stereotypes, breaking the rules. You can't tell me what is for me. Yeah. You got a lot more behind those pretty eyes, but you gotta let the world see. Yeah. So shake it out. Now is the time while you're waiting. You're good enough. Now is the time while you're waiting. What are you waiting on? Don't let them bring you down. But they ain't rocking with you, so what? Yeah, you're gonna be cool without them. Don't let them bring you down. If they ain't rocking with you, so what? Yeah, you're gonna be cool without them. Oh, don't let them bring you down. And don't let them bring you down. Oh.
Welcome to the Retirement Learning Lab, where we teach you how to retire without running out of money. My name is Van Richards, and this is the daily NASDAQ Stock Update for September the 4th, 2020. Thank you for joining us today. We have two really good stocks to talk about today. As you can see, we're going to talk about Exelon Corporation and Fastenal Company. Exelon is an interesting company. You may not have heard of it, but if you live on the East Coast, if you live in Illinois or New York or one of those eastern cities, this company supplies you with power. This is the largest utility in the United States, and we're going to talk about it just a little bit today. The other company we're going to talk about started off selling fasteners. Fascinating thought. Fastenal is the name of the company. They've diversified to help supply industrial and commercial industries with different types of materials, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. The best thing that we're going to hit on with both of these stocks today is going to be the fact that they both pay dividends. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get right to it and see where we're going to go today. Exelon closed down the day just a little bit. As we note, the rest of the market ended off too. It could have been a lot worse than perhaps it was. The jobs report came out and it was excellent. The unemployment rate was below 10% for the first time since March. So things are going great there from the economic standpoint of employment. I know that if you're not employed, it's not going good. But generally speaking, hang in there, keep looking for a job, and keep moving forward. If you have retirement money that you have and it's going to come to you because you've been laid off or you're out of work, give us a call because we can help you to use some of the ideas that we're talking about today to help you to manage that money. But we want to get straight into the stocks today. We'll talk a little bit about some of these different ideas about income in just a minute. But as we can see that Exelon was off about 0.54%. And as I mentioned before, Exelon supplies about 32 gigawatts to a huge part of the country. Now, I have a trivia question for you. When you were watching Marty McFly and Doc in Back to the Future, how many gigawatts did it take for them to go back in time? The answer is 1.21 gigawatts. Of course, they call it gigawatts, but anyhow, let's move on and see how we're doing today. This is what has happened with Exelon over the past year. The huge drop that you see here, you're familiar with it by now. That's the big market crash that occurred in between February and March. Now, the interesting thing about this stock, if we compare it to a lot of the stocks that's in the NASDAQ 100, that's the index that we report on here. If you compare this to the average stock in the index, it hasn't kept up with it. If we look back 12 months to September the 4th, 2019, a long time ago before the coronavirus was a thought of being a big problem, we saw that this stock was at about $46.46 per share, and it closed today 37.09. So really, this stock is off 20.17%. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I guess I don't want to own that stock. If you're looking for dividends, this might be a bargain. So hang with me there just for a little bit. And remember, I don't want to make a recommendation to you that you're going to run out and make today, tomorrow. Actually, you'd have to wait until Tuesday when the markets open again. But I want you to make sure that whatever decisions that you make with the investments that you have fit you, not just based on what my recommendations or my thoughts are. This is really not a recommendation from that standpoint. Okay, but I want to look at something that's really special. I want to look at the dividends. They're extremely...
The beauty of your side.
Even though this stock is down in value over a period of 12 months, it pays a dividend that is excellent. It pays a 4.1% forward dividend. Now, when we look at stocks and we analyze them and we think of, is this a stock that's going to be worthy of buying? Do I need to own this stock? We need to look at three different things. The first thing we want to look at is going to be earnings growth. The second thing we want to look at is industry strength. How are they compared to their competitors? And then the third thing we want to look at is going to be the stability of the company in itself. And we're going to look at all those in a real quick period of time. So hang with me here and let's keep going. When we look at what's happened with the dividends with this company, the first thing we have to really pull apart is we have to look at what the earnings are. Are the earnings continuing to grow quarter after quarter? If we look at it and we go back a year, the earnings, they were up just a little bit. We went on to the next quarter. They were up about 13.7% over what they were projected to be. And then we went to the third quarter from then, it was up about 3.35%. And then August 4th, the earnings was up 30.95%. So this is a utility that's continuing to produce profits. Yes, they are a utility. It's hard to replace a utility. You can't really just go out and build one in itself. This company is continuing to make earnings, make their estimates, and they're continuing to pay dividends. Let's look at what they've paid. When we look at the dividend history, it's been really consistent. November of 2019, 36 cents. February, 38 cents. May, 38 cents. August, 38 cents. It's continued to be the same thing as you're going along. And if you're retired, this is a really significant thing to look at. Yes, you have to understand that there's risk associated with stocks. And we're going to talk about some of the characteristic problems that come with utilities in just a second. But this is a good stock from the standpoint of dividends. When we look at how the company compares to other utilities, it's actually done pretty well. When we look at Exelon, if you can zoom in here and look, the blue is going to be Exelon, and it's actually kept up with what's been going on. It's lockstep with the other companies like Entergy, First Energy, and Public Service Enterprise. Now, if you look at First Energy, First Energy is the gray stock. What the heck's going on right here? Okay. Now, look, this is something, what I'm going to tell you about is a problem that goes hand in hand sometimes with utilities. Utilities they're entrenched with communities, with elected officials. Elected officials have a lot of power with utilities, so to speak. And with First Energy got caught. All right, now one thing I do want to say before I go on, remember I've showed you all this rate of return, but past performance is not guaranteed the future results. But let's look at this news. NPR reported that FBI agents arrested an Ohioan House Speaker because he was basically taking kickbacks. All of it was an illegal scheme to have taxpayers bail out a pair of troubled nuclear power plants operated by First Energy. And that's why that stock dropped about 12% in one day. It happens sometimes. You've probably heard of it happen before. So if you're going to invest in utilities, I really, really recommend that you not just invest in one, that you diversify from that standpoint. And I'll make an offer to you here real quick, if I could. If you're listening to this today, or you listen to this on the replay, I have a list of the 30 top utilities that are available. And if you will send me an email and say, I'd like to get a list of the top 30 utilities, I'll email that to you. It's just a list. There's no specifics about it. It's just, these are the top utilities that I recommend to people. And if you'd like to get that list, just send me an email at van@richardsfinancialplanning.com, and I'd be glad to send it to you. It's not a recommendation for you to go out and buy it, but you can see the type of stocks that I help people to get into, especially retirees who are looking for income. Remember, if you're investing in stocks and you're retired, or you're thinking of retiring and you think of investing in stocks, there's really only 3 different reasons why people invest in stocks for retirement. One is going to be growth. We've talked about that a lot, and I won't beat that to death from that standpoint. The second thing we're really harping on today, or I am, and that is dividends. Dividends are significant, especially if you're looking to increase what dividends are being paid to you as income. And then the third reason is a lot of people who are retired will use investing in stocks as just something that they like to do. They collect it just like they collect gold coins. I like collecting Morgan silver dollars. Some people like investing in stocks. I used to have a client that did that on a regular basis. She'd go out and play tennis 3 days a week, and she'd come back and she'd watch CNN. This was before the days of the internet. And she would call up and she would make trades with the discount broker. We basically set up a strategy where she had a certain amount of money that was her fun money. She didn't go to gamble or anything. She liked investing in stocks and see how it works. Don't spend more than you can lose in that particular situation. That's one circumstance that I agree with Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports. Don't invest in speculative stocks with more money than you can risk to lose. Now, when we're talking about strategies for retirement, you can talk about retirement money, because we're going to put together a strategy that would help you preserve what you have. Obviously, there's no guarantees with investing in stocks, but we try to reduce the risk as much as possible. Okay, so let's keep moving on here today and add this back into the stream. Now, remember, we want to look at the stability of these companies too. How stable are they? How do they compete with their competitors? Now, you've looked at all the other different stocks that are in the utility business, and you see that Exelon is doing a good job of competing. And you have to understand, it's a utility. It's not like that somebody's going to go out tomorrow and build a utility right next door to it. They have to go, if they produce nuclear power, as Exelon does, then they have to get a permit. They have to work with the government. They have to be regulated. They have to follow the regulations. It takes them 7 years to build a plant before they can even produce 1 bit of energy. So it's a business that's very hard to duplicate. The other thing is competition is thin. Exelon's one of the largest utilities that exist, so they have, in a way, a legalized monopoly in some particular areas. However, there are other energy companies that are in the similar markets, so there may be some overlap in there where that the way that the energy is produced and available. We have new things that are coming in, and depending on who gets elected to the White House, green energy may be more significant. Now, here's an important question I'd like to ask you. Is nuclear power green? What do you think? I don't think so. Personally, I don't. I know there's a lot of you out there that think, well, yeah, it's green because it doesn't create greenhouse gases. Yeah, but the problem is you have a byproduct that is hazardous for thousands of years. What happens when you get all of that byproduct and you get more and more of it? Where are you going to put it all? And that's not a big problem right now. They're burying it in the ground. But over a period of time, that's going to obviously become a big problem. Green energy, in my mind, is going to be things like wind power or solar power. That's green energy. That's sustainable. Okay, let's keep moving on and look at the next stock that we have that's coming up. Well, actually, not quite yet. We want to look at what the sustainability and what the recommendations are going to be from the analyst. The current price of this stock is $37.09, and Morningstar gives a fair rating, fair value of $41. So what that means is it's trading actually at a discount according to Morningstar. And that's one of the reasons why Morningstar actually gives it 3 stars, which is pretty good from that standpoint. Let's look at what the other analysts are saying about this particular stock. Now, when we do a survey of analysts with Exelon Corporation, there are 13 analysts that were polled, and we found that 7 of them said that it was a strong buy, and then 4 of them said that it was going to be a hold. We had 1 sell and 1 moderate sell. So what's that tell us? That tells us this. That tells us that it's actually a moderate buy. So that's actually a good thing from that standpoint. But I do want you to remember one thing. It's very, very important. This is not a buy-sell recommendation. This is a recommendation of information. It's just education from that standpoint. For you to be able to get a recommendation from me, you got to call me up or you got to contact me, and we have to learn more about you and your particular situation. And then I can make a recommendation to you. And I'll tell you how to do that in just a few moments. But let's keep moving on and look at the next stock that we have coming up. This is Fastenal. Fastenal, if you're not in the if you're not into commercial business, if you're not in construction or that type of business, you might not be familiar with companies like Fastenal or Granger or a couple of the others that we're going to talk about. But this is a dominant company when it comes to supplying industry and construction with supplies. Yeah, it closed down just a little bit today, but a lot of other stocks did too. It was down about 1.6%. Now let's look back though, because this is a different story than Exelon. When we look at what this stock sold for a year ago, it was selling for $29.27, and then it closed today at $46.27. So, wow, that's really pretty good. If you held this stock from last year, you'd be at 58.08%. So that's really pretty good. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to look at earnings growth in a stock like this because they do pay a dividend. Remember, dividends are good. Yep, dividends are good. So let's see how the sustainability is for these particular dividends. If we look at the earnings that's occurred, we go back a year, we see that they are actually doing pretty well. When we go to the next quarter, they did have a negative result. Their projection was 31 cents. They were down a penny, not a lot. Fastenal continues to pay pretty well on a regular basis, and you'll see that when we actually look at the real dividends here just a second. The earnings per share continued pretty much unsurprised at that point. And when we look at the actual dividends in itself, it paid 22 cents in one quarter. It paid 25 cents in another quarter, 25 cents another quarter, 25 cents this past July. So it's been really, really consistent from that standpoint. So if you're a retiree and you're looking for a dividend paying stock, this might be one to consider. You got to look at your entire financial situation, obviously, but if you're looking for dividends, Fastenal is a company that you might want to take a gander at. Now, we also want to look at how does a company like this compete? How is its industry strength? And actually, it does really pretty well. There's a couple of other companies that are publicly traded that are in the same area, the same type of business. MSC Industrial Direct, Granger is another one, Wesco International is another one as well. And you can see actually they've done really pretty good. Wesco's actually fallen behind more than any of the others. But when you look at what the progress has been for Fastenal, it's actually been superior to its competition. So that's actually done pretty well from that standpoint. But remember, the past performance of these investments is not a guarantee of the future results. Now, one good thing, though, about Fastenal is it has a wide moat. Even though that there are a lot of competitors out there, they have a big footprint. They have 2,100 stores, and they're able to benefit from their scale of operations, which is a really big thing. They have a diversified revenue stream. They have vending machines. They have industrial supply. They even do some consulting for technology. And they have 400,000 very faithful customers. That gives this company a wide moat. Now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a moat? So I want to remind you, we go through this every day. Remember, a moat is the sustainable profitability of a stock. If you have a narrow moat, then you don't have a lot guarding against your competitors. If you have a wide moat, then you've got a lot of leeway. You've got a lot of advance against competitors from that standpoint. So when we were talking a minute ago about Exelon as far as utilities go, it actually has a narrow moat. Now, it's possible for a company not to have any moat at all, but we're not talking about any of those companies today. But when we talk about Fastenal, because of its diversified business and its footprint in the business of industry and commercial supply, they do have a wide moat. So let's go back into it and look a little bit more specifically at what Morningstar says about the price of it. Today, they closed at $46.27. Morningstar's pegging the value of this at $33. So what that tells you is this is actually selling at a premium of 28.68%. So what that tells us too is that usually when you're selling at a large premium, Morningstar's not going to give you a lot of stars. But remember, the star rating is not like eating at a restaurant. It's not like if you go out, you have a Gordon Ramsay 4-star meal and it tastes great and everything. It's not how good it is, it's what the fair value of it is. That's the star rating system and how it works with Morningstar. But let's keep moving on and let's look at actually what some of the analysts are saying about this stock. Now, when there were 11 analysts that were polled, we only had 2 of them that said that it was a strong buy. So that's being a little bit more standoffish and hesitant from that standpoint. And actually 9 of the analysts said that this was going to be a stock that they would hold on. So what's that tell us? It tells us that in general that we're going to have a hold on this stock. It's not going to be one that analysts are going to say, run out and buy. Okay. Again, you have to look at it from your personal situation. It depends on what your particular situation is from the standpoint of, do you need a stock that's going to pay dividends? Do you think that it's going to continue on from that standpoint? Remember, this is not a buy-sell recommendation, though. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk to you about today is, hold on just one second. Okay. If you need help with your retirement plan, give me a call. That's what I do. Reach out and contact me. If you want to talk about how that any of these can be utilized for retirement, or you want to talk about what you have and how it might help you to pay more money. Or one of the best things that I do is I help people to make their money last so that they can retire without the fear of running out of money. Now, if you'd like to get a chance to talk to me, it doesn't cost a penny. You can spend about 15 or 20 minutes talking to me over the telephone, and we can talk about whatever you want to from your investment standpoint. If you go to my website at richardsfinancialplanning.com, looks just like what you're seeing here on the screen, and you click on the teal button and you will be taken to my calendar, and you can sign up for a time, and then I'll reach out to you and we'll have a conversation and see how it goes from there. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you very much for listening today. Stay tuned, because there is an important disclosure that's coming up, and I will talk to you on Tuesday. Have a great Labor Day, everybody.